Okay, we should have that up. And we can get started on that. We'll probably have some people come in and pop in as well. I have the time on the calendar for an hour, but I also did leave it open if there are some more specific questions when we're all done and people have some time to stick on and stay around. You're welcome to do that. I'll stay until I've answered everybody's questions. So um, this is the introduction meeting to validations with Parking and Transportation's new parking system. So the parking system that PTS has used for controlling the spaces in our structures and some of our bigger lots was reaching its end of life, and for purposes of credit card processing and just functionality of the equipment, we needed to select a new equipment and update our systems. So we've selected a company called Hub Parking Technologies. They're the same company that has equipment at the airport if people parked at the airport. And we've started installing all of those, and we brought a few sites up and live. And a key component of that is being able to set up validation so people at the university would be able to pay for people's parking from the departmental budget. So that's what this is all about. Our old systems that we had a couple different ways that departments build parking. And we're now combining all of those kind of transient parking needs where a department pays for a visitor or a staff member's small chunk of time parking. And we're combining that all into validations. So we are taking departmental coupons, our prepaid coupons, and our budget charge cards. And those are all getting rolled into validations, a new system that we have with the new provider that we have. It's very exciting because it does mean that we have a lot more options and a lot more ability for reporting and for understanding what's going on with all of those services. But whenever you add options, that does mean that does add some complexity to it as well. So the group that we have here, the group that got sent the invite, were people that were going to be operating as merchants, or the kind of the authority in their department for being able to charge parking. So that's presumably who all of you are. You don't have to be a merchant to be here, but this is what this conversation is going to be directed for, is the people that in the department that are going to be set up for assigning who gets to charge parking and how they do it. So it'll be a little bit more involved. The nice thing about the setup that we have here is that merchants are able to delegate some of their authority to other people in their department so that other people can do a lot of the work. So as a merchant, getting it set up, you can do all of it yourself, do all of the validation yourself and not let anybody else do it. That's an option to you if you want. But we now have the ability that you can set up a delegate for you in your department, and those people are called clerks. And you can give them as much authority, you can give them all of the authority that you have, or you can just give them parts of the authority that you have. That is going to be a resource to be able to kind of spread out the workload to where it's appropriate and most needed. As we get going, I'll introduce Farhia Ahmed. She's an operations manager with Parking and Transportation Services. And she and I have been doing a lot of the implementation and getting this set up and getting it working and running. So she's going to be manning the chat. If people have questions as we go, we can put them in the chat. We'll try and capture those. I'll try and stop periodically and see if we can answer some of those in the relevant subjects that we're at. My goal is to spend not more than half of the time, not more than 30 minutes here describing the new features and then using the rest of it for question and answer, because I know there are a lot of questions out there. Because I know that there are a lot of different ways that people use parking on campus and use the validation system that they have. So we get started. Okay, it looks like there was a quick question on passwords, a generic password. When somebody is set up as a merchant, Parking and Transportation sets people up as merchants. So most of the people here have been set up as a merchant, and you receive an automatic email that tells your login credential and your password. Once you're set up as a merchant and you set up Clerks, you're the one that generates the username and the password for that person. So you just need to shoot them a quick email once you set the clerk up. The system doesn't automatically send them a username and password. We've used the convention of people's internet ID as their username for that. So the internet ID, the first part of their email is their username. That's a way to keep it unique, so we can go from there. Okay. I will share my screen. So this is University of Minnesota Parking and Transportation website. The homepage here looks like this. And this is, if people have any questions or there are other people in the office that want to know more about it, this is a great starting place. Come to our webpage, and then on this quick links area, there's this validations. Click on that link there. And this will provide a lot of the question and answers. This is also where we'll put the FAQs from these sessions and update those with questions that people have, and we can put those resources here as well. And you can read a little bit about the process and what's happening there. But this request access is really where you start off. So most of you have gone here, clicked on this link, it signs you in. It uses the X500 as a sign-in to request to be set up a shop and a merchant. That's what this is doing, is setting up those two things. The three terms that are helpful for people to understand in this process are merchant, which is what all of you are, the person that's responsible for the parking charges, the clerk, who are the designees of the merchant to be able to apply some of that parking, and then shops. For the purpose of this, and the purpose at the University of Minnesota, a shop is the same thing as a unique EFS string. So if you have an EFS string that you use for charging parking, if you have one EFS string you use, you'll have one shop. If you have 6 EFS strings that you use, you'll have 6 shops. One merchant can have as many shops as they need, but every shop needs to at least have one merchant, one and only merchant. That's the person that's in charge of how that money from that EFS is spent. So, and then as you set up clerks, you can set up a clerk for all of your EFS strings or just one of your EFS strings. But those are the terms. EFS equals a shop. That's the easiest way to think of that. So this is the page that people have gone on to request that. If you need to request additional shops, you can just come to this form again and then fill it out again. We have logic that will see that if you're already set up as a merchant, we'll just add a shop to your merchant account. So that is the starting point here on our webpage. Once you've been approved and entered into the system, then you will receive an email that gives you login information to go to J4M Merchant. J4M Merchant is the web page that you can go and access and to apply validations. It is also the name of the app that you can find on the App Store. So J4M, it has the same insignia on Google Play and Apple Store, and it is an app that can be used for validations. The validation application with the phone on an app is actually pretty slick because you can utilize the camera on the phone to just take a picture of the ticket and it validates it right from there. So, so you'd come to here and you put in the parking credentials you've got. I'll put in that and then log in and it will take you to the new screen that you have. Now, if you haven't done anything yet, this will be blank. It'll be all zeros. But on this page here, this is the merchant's main landing page. So when you log in, this is what you'll see. And it'll default to the dashboard. The dashboard has a couple little tools and widgets that you can keep on there. You can also drag and move them around and change your location. But it will show you the number of users you have, which are the clerks that you can set up, how much you validated, how many active clerks you have. So, and then there are these additional just widgets that are here that are kind of some quick reference that you can see. So you can see how many validations have been applied. You can see who has been applying validations and the status of each of those validations. So, so that is the main dashboard and some of the things that you'll see there. And then for Hio, if there are questions that you think we should stop for, let me know. Otherwise, for Hio's manning the chat, so she'll be doing a lot of the answering of the questions. As we go through here, then the second one are clerks. This is where you can set up those designees to be able to apply those validations to people. We'll come back to the clerk section in just a bit here, because the next one here is validation. This is the bread and butter of it. This is where we apply the validations to people's tickets. The term validation is really meant for somebody has come in and they've pulled a ticket from the machine. Then you're able to give them a validation to that ticket, and it will actually match up with that record in the software. So, and it does that with this barcode that's on the ticket.
Hey, Marcus. Hi. How are you? Coming to say bye to Maryland? We got cupcakes.
It doesn't really tell you, the ticket doesn't look exactly like this, but it does have two barcodes on the top. And the ticket number is right on that ticket. And I can show you a picture of what one of the tickets looks like. So this is what the tickets that are issued from the machines will look like. This number here is the ticket number that will go in for validation. This is the location that it's at. So this is the 4th Street ramp. As you come, then you insert the ticket number here. I think that's the right number that I had. No, that was the wrong number. So if you have the ticket number, you can read the ticket number off of the ticket, but if somebody has it, they can just read it off to you, and you can enter it manually too. So and then it matches up that ticket. It finds it. If a validation hasn't been applied yet, this will be blank. But this ticket has had one validation applied to it, and it will show you that somebody else has already applied a validation. Now, you can apply another one if you change your mind as to the validation level that you want to have for that ticket, but it's always going to take the last validation you put. So once you've entered in that and it finds a ticket, then it will ask you what type of discount you want. And there are 4 levels of discounts. The easiest way to think of this is the maximum amount of parking that you want to pay for that person. The EFS and your EFS charges will only be charged the amount that they park. It won't charge more than that. So if you put a full day validation on somebody's ticket and they're only parked there for 3 hours, it will only bill you for 3 hours. The differences on the 4 different types of validation: first hour is just up to $3. It's 1 hour of parking. So that 1 hour, if they stayed for 1 hour and their charge was $3, then, and you validated for $3, then it would be free and they would leave when they got up to the machine. If they stayed over and they were there for 4 hours, then it would discount their rate by $3. So if their total charge was $7, it would take $3 off and they would have to pay $4. So that's first hour free. Half day is up to $8, works the same way. Daily max is up to $13, but we'll only pay up to $13. And a full validation is you're going to pay for the whole parking charge, no matter if it goes 3 days or a week. So it can get over $13 for that validation charge. So those are the levels of validation that you can apply to people's tickets. We had a lot of people that requested, they wanted to help somebody out with their parking fee, but they didn't want to pay the whole parking fee. And that first hour free is kind of the way to do that. Is it allows you to pay for just $3 of their parking, but maybe not the whole parking ticket if you don't want to. So you also have the ability, if you want to add a note, you can say like speaker for conference, and you can apply daily max. And then you get the green bar, daily max applied to that ticket. And from here, you can just go to next ticket, or you can go back to another area on your validation page. On the validation, we are just using the barcodes right now. That's the only section that you need to do. We are investigating and we're working on improvements to be able to validate just by somebody's license plate. That's not there right now, and we'll send out information when we get that there. But that's one of the features that we're looking to add in the near future. As we go through now, we can come back and we're going to talk a little bit more about clerks. Like I said, clerks are the designee of somebody in the department of the merchant to be able to charge for parking. The way that we're suggesting that people set this up is this is really what should replace your budget charge card users. So you likely had some users that you gave them a plastic card and it was a budget charge card and it charged the transient parking rates whenever they would use that card at a facility. What we're suggesting that people do is we set those people that had that physical card would now be set up as a clerk. And what they would do is you would register them, you would add them as a clerk, just click add. We'll call this person New Parker. And you put in name. And then the email. The email is the unique thing about setting up a profile. That's the one thing that you can't change once you've entered it in. So you can come back and change their name and change anything else that they have set up. But the email is the thing that defines that profile. It's also the thing that's going to send out and be able to let people manage their password and other things like that. So you want to make sure that you have the right email for that. So we'll do go. And then come down here to password. As the merchant, you'll set up the password for the clerks that you're making. So you can make one type of password for all of that. When we set up the merchants, we made sure that the passwords we created, we intended for them to be changed, but they are all unique as well. So if you kept them from the one that you were assigned, you can still keep using them. So something like this, it does require certain features, and that's down here, the 6 characters, capital letter. So if you select a password and it doesn't have something, it will tell you what you don't have, or the fact that you can't have spaces, but the password requirements are going to be down there. So you want all green checks. So you can do something like, I'll do a password meeting 123, and then that gets me all of green checks. So meeting 123. And if it doesn't match, you'll notice that there's a red box still along that change password, so that doesn't match. And now the box has turned blue. So then those 2 passwords match and you can continue with the setup. So on this setup, you'll want to, then you assign what you want for them to do. Another point that I want to make on this is we needed to assign a home location when we were setting these up. The home location doesn't mean that's the only place you can use it. You can use it at all locations. It's just we assigned the 19th Avenue, it's just the first one in alphabetical order as the home location, but validations will work at all of the sites that we have set up. So I can select that site. It's the only option that you'll have from there. Now, this is where you will get to give the clerk whatever access you want to give them. So you need to give them the facility access. Then there are the 4 different rates that we talked about. There's the full validation, which is 100%. And that's what these values mean, percentage, 100% value. So that whatever the charge is, it will validate the whole amount. A value of up to $13 for the daily max, a value of up to $8 for the half day, and a value of up to $3. Now, if the charge is less than that, it doesn't charge you that amount. It charges you what the actual parking charge was. But if the charge is, you just have the parker pays the rest. Was there a question? Or, yeah, specifically for you, if I need to slow down or stop to address some questions that are coming up in the chat, let me know. So like on this one, let's set them up. We're going to give them the ability to validate for a half day for up to $8. And then we continue. This last step here is for permissions. There's really nothing, there's no reason to turn off these permissions for Clerks right away. So you can just leave all of them on and create it. And then the "Are you sure" button comes up. And then you have successfully created a clerk. And now that clerk is now on your list. And you can manage that person and see what they do and what they've done as far as validation and what's happening with that. Now, if this person leaves, you have the ability to go over here, and over here you can edit their profile. You could send them an email directly if you wanted to from here, but you can also lock and disable their profile. So you disable their role, and now they won't be able to validate now, starting instantaneously. So if there's somebody that you think might be not using their credentials the way they should, they might be validating too much, you want to ask them some questions before they do anything else, you can come back here and disable their role. Or they're leaving the organization, they're going on sabbatical for 6 months, something like that, you can disable their role. And at any point you can come back here and enable it. So we are able, they can be completely removed from the list, but we need to do that on our end. You aren't able to completely remove them from the system. You're just able to disable them. So that is the clerk and the clerk setup. And like I said, this is really what we're intending to be the replacement for the budget charge cards that people have had. So the way this would work for somebody in your agency is, let's say Larry is not used to have a budget charge card. He needs to go to meetings on the West Bank and in St. Paul on occasion, and he's been using that to park over there. So you say, okay, Larry, now this is the validation system. So download this app, J4M. That's the easiest way to do that for Larry. He downloads that app on his phone. Then he goes to that facility, pulls a ticket. And then at any point during his meeting, on his walk to the room that he's going to, pulls up the app, scans the ticket on his phone, and his parking is validated. Then you as a merchant are able to see that validation has been put in there, and you're able to see how often they use it. By going over here, you can see it on the dashboards. You can see here that one validation has been applied today. I can see here that it was applied to this ticket and it was granted. You are actually able, before it's used, you are able to just hit the abort button here, and you can actually stop the validation and just take it off of that ticket. If for some reason it was an accident or it shouldn't have been put on there, that's possible. Once that ticket is used at the exit, then the status will change to used. So that is the setup for the budget charge card on that. Now, the coupon use generally was somebody in the office had a stack of them in a desk drawer or something like that. What we'd recommend is the person that was in charge of those coupons is either a merchant or a clerk. And the assigning of those, instead of keeping a paper log of which coupons were assigned to which person and when, they would just have that access to this web page or use it on the app and be able to validate those tickets that come across to them. In this and in our rollout, what we have here, we are going for kind of, we need to get the system in place and get users used to it. We are going to have other newer, better options that are going to become available to us. There's a lot more potential in the system that will be rolling out as people become more confident with it, and we have more uses for it. So there are things that are on the way, like I said, like that validating by license plate will be coming. Additionally, this tab right here is for voucher, will allow merchants to produce barcodes that can be emailed out to people, so that they would have a barcode that would work similar to like the coupons worked, where they would present the barcode, and that's what would match up to the validation for that. We don't have that barcode distribution system set up just yet, but it is something that is coming very, very quickly. So from here though, and from where we're at right now, getting the validation system and getting people used to that is really our primary goal, is to get everybody in so they understand how it works, and they're able to start using it. And they can use it on any facility that's gone live. And we have several facilities that are going to be going live in the next few weeks. By the end of January, by the end of January, all of the structures, with the exception of WBOB, all of the structures will be updated to the new equipment. So the big ones on the East Bank, East River Road, Oak Street, they're live with the new equipment right now, and the validations can be used there now. And then Washington will be going live next week. What I will say is, if people have coupons that they're using and they're still distributing right now, and they're not going to quite get in line to be able to use this validation system, we still will honor the coupons at the exit. Just let people know, if you have that, push the button for help if it doesn't work on the machine that you're at, and our call staff will get them out with the old coupons. We want to move away from that as soon as we can from each of those places. One of the other questions that came up is, if I have a stack of the prepaid coupons, can I get a refund? And yes, you can. That's on that validations webpage. Down here with prepaid coupons, there's a link to a refund request form to be able to get those. The pink coupons and the blue coupons were the prepaid ones, and those can get a refund. The yellow coupons are departmental coupons and were never charged until they were used, so those can be discarded. Maybe not in just a regular trash. If you have a secure storage, or at least storage that's not gonna, or a trash that's not gonna get rifled through, you can just throw those away once you no longer need them. There we are. Fahil, do you have, are there anything I should address before we
can you go over what the managed and active accounts are in J4M? And I'm not sure if you did you go over what the Max Drive license plate and telepass, what those are?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes. Well, specifically this mag stripe and the telepass won't be used. We aren't going to install any equipment that uses mag stripes, and the telepass is something that's a little bit more common over in Europe. So those two options won't be used, but the license plate validation is something that we will be able to do hopefully in the near future, not right now at the rollout. So
while you're here, do you want to talk about the webcam?
So yes, if you have a webcam enabled on the computer, instead of typing in the number, you can scan it with the webcam that you have as well too. If the webcam is installed, you can turn that on, and it will use the webcam to scan that. Now, if you're in a Zoom meeting, your webcam is tied up, so it doesn't really work. But that is a way that you can enter in the number there as well. If your department is doing many validations a day, we have other scanners that could help in speeding that up. And if you're doing, if you're going to be at this web page 10 times a day or more, there are other scanners that we can look at too as a resource to help speed that process up. And then Fahil, do you want to pull up the app and let me know when you're ready to share that?
Yep, I'll log in. Just like
okay. And then at the machine, I can show you an image here of what the machines look like. So it's pretty easy to tell when we have a new machine because it has this green bar of light down the center of it. So that's a new machine. The old machines don't have that. On this, then you can see there's a monitor here, a screen that displays what actions need to be taken on that. The machines on entry and exit look almost identical, and so the things are in the same place. On the machine, then there is this green green light, which shows the ticket throat. So if this is on the entry, this is where tickets come out. And if it's on the exit, this is where tickets go in. Right next to that is a reader for the contract for people that have contracts. So if you have a contract, you can use your U card at this reader here. Over here is a barcode scanner, which right now won't be used for too many things. The tickets can just be put right back into the ticket slot here. Once we do have vouchers with barcode tickets that people can have on their phone, this is where they would scan it, at this scanner right here. Down here is where credit cards are inserted. So this is where the credit card goes in, and it uses the chip on the credit card as long as it has one of those chips. There's also a wireless reader here for Apple Pay, Google Pay, and the near field communication in credit cards. It's, if you can tap your credit card at the grocery store, you can tap it on this reader right here on the machine. And then right up here is the help button that people would press if they need assistance with anything. There we go.
Then I'm ready to share.
Gotta mute. Okay, so yeah, you can, for here, if you want to share that screen, and I can walk it through so you can stay muted. Okay, so if you, like I said, if you go to the Apple Store or the Google Play Store, you can get J4M merchant account. Oop. Okay, she's going to log out to show how you can log back in. There are a couple things we have found that, depending on where you download this from or the time that you download this from, sometimes the server information on there, the US, it needs to start with US for here and not EU, which is for Europe. We're going to post specifically an FAQ about that because that is one thing that has hung up people on occasion. And then enter in the login information. And then once you've logged in once, then you can save that login on there. Oh, and Diane had asked a question about people that have had that have COVID contracts for the essential employees. If you've had any sort of contract set up in your name, it will still work on those contract readers that are on the machines. So then this is the main page. Like I said, pretty easy on the app. There are really just two buttons to push. So, and if you push validate on there, it will use the camera on your phone to scan a ticket and validate it. There you go. Ticket's validated. So it'll apply that validation to that ticket. You can change it, the amount that you want, or just use the default amount, and it validates that ticket. So if there are large groups of things going on, let's say an event or a check-in procedure for some type of an event that people want to use, this app is going to be very helpful for scanning a lot of tickets very quickly if you need to. So there you go. And it's capturing that barcode and applying the validation. There we go. So if we want to, let's see, it looks like we had quite a few comments coming in. I want to take the rest of the time probably for questions that people might have. For heroes, are there any kind of themes that we need to adjust for the whole group?
Ben, can you go over the signs that we're posting at the facilities to help the customers bring their ticket in with them?
Yes, so at the entrance to all of our facilities, we have signs that show 3 different ways to pay for that, which also say to take your ticket with you for validation. I would say if you're doing something with, if you have an event going on, it's a good thing to tell people to do is to bring their ticket with them for validation. That's really what they need. You know, and depending on how much involvement you have on this, if this is a one person that's coming in and they're like, oh, I left my ticket in the car, you can also tell them, you know, when you get back to your car, before you go to the exit, call me and give me the number, and you can enter the number in to the website from the phone if that's something that you want to do from there too. So if you want to, depends on how much hand holding you want to do with that person. So we're going to try and do what we can to make this validation program successful. So if there are a couple slip ups where people forget to bring a ticket, we can, like I said, we can work it through on the exit and just make sure that the customer gets out, and so that their experience isn't too bad as people are getting used to using the new system. One other thing I'd like to just point out too is that the actual billing will still happen the exact same way. It will happen through EFS and through e-statement, and you can check that the same way you would have checked your coupon purchases and your budget charge card purposes before. So the way it's billed happens the exact same way. The information you see on this new web page is just the preliminary. It's the stuff that's been put through and it's slated to be charged, but the actual charging will happen on the university's EFS system. So, which is that's the thing that always made the implementation of this, you know, kind of interesting, because the university's financial system is quite a bit more complex than most other places. So. There we are. Okay, so process of somebody leaving the facility. If, so let's say if somebody has a guest and you're intending to validate their full parking, they would pull up to the facility, pull a ticket as they came in, they come to your desk, your office, you would use either the app or the web page to validate that ticket. If it's a full validation, when that person goes to the exit, if the license plate readers were not able to capture their license plate on the way in or the way out, they would just roll down their window, put their ticket in, and the gate would go up. If it captured their license plate, as soon as they pull up to the gate, it will read their license plate, know that it's a full validation, and the gate will just go up. So for the vast majority of the validations that you apply, if you're validating that whole amount, when they get up to the gate, they don't even have to roll down their window. The license plate readers will generally let them out without having to stop or put their ticket in.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, and I'll make a note about reservations. Our current reservation system is not changing right now and won't probably change at least for the next 8 months. We'll use the same reservation system. So if you've made reservations in the past and you're comfortable with those are not going to change in the effect of how they work. So they still make the reservation at the location, inform the person that they need to push the silver button on the way out and say that they have a reservation and they can leave. We will use that same process for reservations until we have more of the systems and more of the technology available from our new partner to be able to implement something that's better and more streamlined and that works a little bit more readily with the systems that we have. So logging into the app. So logging into the app for the first time, Stephanie had put that out there. If you, just like any other app you download from the App Store, you'll use the username and the password that were set up, and you can log in as a merchant, as yourself, with that username and password, or your clerks, once you set them up, they can log in with the username and password that you create for them and go through that. For many of them, then you're in the right place and that works. There is one image that we have where there's a server that needs to change a little thing from an EU to a, that might be just easiest to show. For Hio, can you bring that up again? We can maybe show that
Sure.
again. So there's one thing on the server that we've noticed is, and I think it's probably from the Apple Store download. I don't think the Android Store download has caused the issue, but the Apple Store, it loads it into the European default, and it just needs to be changed to the US default. Also, to Victor's question, are we able to delete clerks? No, you can just disable clerks. If there needs to be an annual cleanup at some point and this person is never coming back, we can do that, and we can disable clerks for people. But at this point, the users just disable them. So, okay, so Farhio is on her phone here. She logged out. And this is the thing, this set up the server point here, and you can see under the main green portion, that first line, that should start with the US. If it doesn't start with the US, it starts with the EU, then it just needs to be changed to US. And once that's there, you can leave that there and then just click save, correct, Farhio?
Yep.
So that is the one thing we're gonna see if we can work with the programmers to get the stores to have the US version as the default for logging in. Okay, so question about staff being present. So as we're going through, this is, like I said, this is really replacing the coupon system that people had. So I often ask people how they distributed the coupon before. So it was a physical piece of paper that was distributed to people. Whoever physically distributed that coupon to somebody should be set up as a merchant or clerk. And however they get that physical piece of paper. Because now it will just be done online or through a scan. If people aren't present, you can have, there are some people that do a lot of remote work. We had the EMT teams that are going to be using this, and the way that they intend to use it is to have their team, when they park for evening events, text the team lead the ticket number, and they can enter that in at any point that they're still in the facility. So that's a way that can be done if somebody isn't directly present. If you are not having any communication with somebody and you aren't actually seeing them at any point in time, that is more difficult. So and that is one of the things that we're going to be working on with the vouchers. So I think there was a question on that, on the ETA on vouchers. It's currently being tested right now. The ETA on the vouchers is within probably very early 2021. So in January. Okay.
And can you go over the permissions and when setting up the clerks?
Yes. Oops. So when setting up clerks, so this is where you would add a new clerk by clicking on that. You can also edit their role here and edit the user. And when you come to here, you're able to see their personal information, and this is where you can change any of that. You can see here that the email is the one part that you can't change, because that's what defines this user. But you can change anything there. You can change the password of the clerk. One thing I will say is you need to know the old password though. So if you set it up, then you can use the password you set up. But if that clerk has changed their password, you would not be able to change their password from here. They would need to do it from the email that they get, in kind of just like any other app, just the change password feature. The roles configuration here talks about what they're able to do. So from here, they'll likely just have one shop, but like I said, there are some departments that might have multiple shops, so there might be multiple lines here. The area is always going to be it's the 19th Avenue ramp is a home location, but like I said, that actually works. That works on the whole campus. It's just it opens it up to everything, but we needed to assign a home location. And then the discounts applied. This is where you can determine where you wanted to set up their discount levels. So whether it's half day, you can give them all of them, or you can give them just one type, whichever you want to do from there. So that's the discount. And then if you want to remove this shop, remove at this level means you take away that access to that shop entirely, but that clerk as a profile is still there. So they're still there as a person in a profile, but you'd be removing the access to that shop. If you have access to multiple shops, you click the add shop to add another one here. Did somebody specifically have permissions on or questions on the permissions of that? So these permissions here, like I said, there's probably not a reason for you to limit permissions here, but you can make it so that a clerk wouldn't be able to see any reports on what they validated. And you can make it so that they wouldn't have permission to edit themselves and edit any of the user like anything in their profile, like their password or anything like that. And you can turn off their permission to view what they can validate, which would, and you can turn off their ability to perform. So you can basically make it so they can't do anything, but it wouldn't be very helpful with that sort of setup. So like I said, there's really not a reason on any of these clerks to take off these permissions. The permissions can really stay there. Okay, let me see if I can get
Benton.
Yeah.
When the vouchers are set up,
Mm-hmm.
will we be able to email people a code and then they would scan that code on when they leave the ramp? Is that how it works?
Correct. Yes, it would actually be a barcode. So the
Okay.
way the vouchers work, and I want to get people comfortable with the validation methods first, because it will use the features of the validation, but then you'll set up basically what you'll set up is a barcode, and you determine what type of validation you want. Do you want them to be able to use it a bunch of times? Do you want them to only use it once a day for 3 days? Do you want to let them use it 20 times a day for a month? You can set date ranges, you can set times. Like I said, there's a lot of functionality, but with functionality comes complexity. So I want people to get used to the base system before we start diving into the vouchers right away.
Yeah.
But once you set that up, you're able to create a barcode that you email to people. And from that email, they can print it off on a printer at home. They can just have it on their phone, and the scanner on the machine would scan that barcode from their phone.
That makes sense. Thanks a lot.
The other thing you can see from your profile that we haven't really looked at is reports. And reports can get drilled down to very specific information that you have. I don't want to walk through all the different types of reports that you can do here. If people have specific questions on what kind of information you want to find, we can certainly walk people through that at a different point, or you can just play around with creating new reports and seeing what you can get from there. Mostly you're just going to get stuff on whether you want user activity, the validation activity that have happened, and kind of go through all of those options there. So, but you can go down a really long, deep hole of seeing what you can find in reports. And so I don't want to waste too much time on that right now. I want to make sure that we can get to people's questions that we have. Let's see, get to my other chat here to see where we're at. Does anybody else actually kind of have what happens when a merchant leaves the university permanently? So that's a good question. Yeah, that would need to, the person that, somebody else from the department would need to register as a replacement merchant. And then on our back end, we would use that other form to to remove the access and disable that person and add it to the new, and add that access to the new person. There would be some responsibility that somebody else in the department would need to know to contact us, because we're not going to necessarily know that somebody's left. As soon as we know that somebody has left, we can disable them as a merchant. So like if something happened and it's like, oh, we need to make sure they're not doing any parking charges anymore, disabling from them for us is the same method as you would disable a clerk. So it's just really literally a click of a button. And until we figure out what that is, they can be disabled. Let's see, if a clerk doesn't have a smartphone or their phone isn't working, how do they? Okay, so if somebody needs to validate and for whatever reason the phone won't connect, it doesn't have Wi-Fi, it doesn't have a data package, it doesn't have any signal for where it's at, it would need to come back up where they would be able to connect to the internet somehow, or people could call to somebody that was at a desk and read off the ticket number that was there. If something is not working on their phone, we can try and troubleshoot to see if it's something with the app itself or if it's just with their ticket that they've had there. Worst case scenario, if nothing else is working, you can say, I'm set up as a clerk, but I wasn't able to validate, and press the button at the exit and the person at the desk will get them out. So that's always there as the last fail safe if something's not going right.
There were some questions about this and I was wondering about it too. When somebody validates, can they type in a note that says?
Yep. Yes. So if you go to validate,
and will that note show up on the reports then?
Yes. Yep.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yep. So let's see if I go back to my dashboard here. I'll grab one of these ticket numbers. Okay, that one is 130 4290 4290. Here. So yeah, once that's put in there, here's the add a note link. And so you can add that note and then that note would appear on reports if you'd like.
Perfect.
Yep. There we go. And you can see here, just as you do more validations and other things here, you'll see these widgets become more interesting once you have more to say. So they can fill up with that there. Does anybody have other questions that maybe Farhia wasn't able to get to in the chat and we can kind of discuss them live?
Hi, Ben. My name's Lindsay.
Oh, Lindsay, okay.
Yep. Do you have more than one shop set up in your system, or do you just have one?
Parking and transportation, we have one set up right now for parking.
Okay.
That's parking charging itself basically, but we have there's Stephanie Davis is on the line with athletics, and athletics has 9, I think, set up. Okay. So there are departments that have quite a few different shops set up.
We'll have at least 2
Yep.
in the dean's office, and so I guess my question is, where do we switch it when we're validating?
Oh, okay. Good question. So on the validation here, so parking garage shop, if you only have one, it's just one, but otherwise this is a drop-down menu.
Oh, okay, perfect. That's easy enough. Thank you.
Hi, I was wondering when y'all if y'all had like a projected timeline of when y'all think that the QR code that you'll have to scan for like mass events would roll out. Like any thoughts on that y'all have for?
Probably January.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you so much.
Once that does come out and once that's live, people that utilize that, we'd probably need to have another kind of meeting in town hall sort of thing to set up the functionality in that, because there are a lot of choices and options with how those work. That will take a little bit of direction to get people to be able to apply those correctly.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Oh, that's a good question. So that's something that came up in our last meeting too, is a listserv. And I think that's a really great idea. I haven't been on a listserv in a while, but there are people in my department that are much, much smarter about those sorts of things than I am. And we'll get those set up. We'll get something set up that has a listserv as far as kind of as merchants to merchants, kind of asking questions, tips and tricks that would work well for people. So yeah, Google Group is probably how we would do that. Yeah.
So this is Colleen.
Huh?
I'm curious, I think more so about future steps in this process,
Mhm.
because one of the things I think our team is struggling with is just, I feel like we're just catching up to this information, and I don't know if we've missed communications, or so how would my team know that the barcode's available? Those types of things.
So if people are, I'll kind of come back to this validation page here. The validation page here has a lot of resources and things that people can touch base on. I will say that it was one of the things that we always kind of struggled with, is how wide do we want to put this information out? Because
Sure.
the application of validations to people is, it's not something everybody at the university needs to know, not even
Of course.
like 5% need to know it. So we wanted to be as focused as we could. The initial email communication that we had, we took anybody that had ordered parking coupons in the last year as an email, and we took people that were set up as budget charge card owners and sent them the email. But there were other people that were involved in the process. We knew that there were other people that were involved in the process that maybe didn't have an email in one of our databases. And so we tried to open it up and put that out there. So in answer to your question is, if there's anybody in your department that needs to know stuff, send them to this validation page.
Okay.
And put that out here, because on here we have stuff like the J4M website, getting started and walkthroughs. We have applying the validations. A lot of the stuff that we went through in this meeting is here as well, in frequently asked questions.
And if we sign up as a merchant in the system now, we will be on those lists in the future.
Correct. Yep. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So there's also a link to e-statement here. If people, I would say if people haven't gone to e-statement to see what charges are applied on their EFS number, that's really a great tool. It's been at the university for quite some time since I've been here, to be able to look up what charges have been applied to your EFS, and you can search by a departmental ID, you can narrow down ranges and things like that. E-statement and EFS billing is done on a monthly cycle though. So you can't see, if it hasn't been billed yet, you don't see anything in e-statement. You only see it in e-statement once it's billed. The nice thing that we're going to be able to have is really to have that feature to be able to see what's sort of on deck to be billed. So you can, if there's a question, if there's something that needs to be contested, if there's something that you're finding just isn't right, hopefully we can get that corrected before the bill just goes through. And then down here, facilities going up, there's also the facility updated timeline, which is a link right here, which gives new equipment, and the equipment that's coming to campus tells you even more about the equipment. Has links back to our validation on that, and then the timeline of the facilities that are up and completed with the validations on that. So, and actually with everybody set up in validations and a bunch of clerks on there, validations can be accepted at anything that's green right now. So anything that's green accepts the new validation system. So yeah, so here there's between the new campus parking equipment that's here and that validation web page here, there's a really a lot of information out there for people to be able to utilize and answer some questions, get some things out there. And I know I learn best by asking questions in groups of people. So that's why I wanted to get this meeting together, to really be able to let people ask away and kind of walk through some of the things on how this is going to work for your department.
Ben,
yeah.
can you go over one more time the default ramp that we have set up for the shops?
Yes, or more importantly, to say, if it says 19th Avenue ramp, don't worry about that. It works everywhere. We just had to assign a home location, but that's the first one on the list. So it doesn't matter. Your home location doesn't matter. The validations work at all of the sites. So if you see anything for 19th Avenue ramp, don't worry about it. Just think of it as that's saying the whole system.
Okay.
Go. Okay, so we're at 11:04. So if feel free, if you need to go to another meeting and take off, by all means you can do that. Otherwise, like I said, I'll stay here until I've answered everybody's questions that they might have for me. So you can ask away if anybody has anything else. There we go. We can, I can also even show what we have for the signs on campus. We have the signs that we have are in place at all the facilities as they go live. The facility signs are updated to have all those, the new signs in them. And right here. So you can see 4th Street ramp, which was our very first facility that we went live with. And at the entry here, there are new signs that have the 3 ways to pay. And this is a Google image, not the regular image, so it doesn't have it updated yet on that. Sorry about that. But right at the front, there are laminated signs that tell people that they can pay in lane with a credit card. They can use the walk-up pay station if they need to pay with cash. And then one of the other things that we're going to have coming in and being able for people to use is the paying with an individual app, which is coming soon. That is a different app than J4M. J4M is just for departments. They're for the merchants. They're for people that validate other people's parking. But we are very soon going to have a way to pay with an app on your phone. Just a regular person coming to campus doesn't need to be university affiliated, doesn't need to do anything else, but they'll be able to set up a profile on their phone, put credit card information in there, and just be able to pay their parking fee with their credit card, or pay it with the app on their phone.
And I have the 3 ways to pay sign I can share.
Oh, okay.
Can you see?
There you go. So, yep. So that's what those signs are going to be in nearly all of the facilities with how they can pay on that. So, and you do want, if people have, we have the take your ticket with you. So people, if they do receive a validation, would have that ticket with them, and you'd be able to validate it that way. Yeah, but I do know there are departments that have already done that, where they've been set up and then somebody forgot their ticket and they had them just call from their cell phone when they got back to their car and just enter the ticket number on the web page, and we're able to apply the validation right from there. Okay. There we go. So Andrea's comment, right now validation process is to grab a ticket and validate it and scan it when they depart. Yep, that's true. They actually insert the ticket into the machine. Like I said, though, if it's a full validation and it recognizes a license plate, which we get about 90 to 95% of the time it recognizes the license plates. If it recognizes that it's fully paid, they don't even have to stop at the machine. The gate will read their license plate and just open up the gate. And in the future, we'll be able to sell pre-validated. So the validation process as it is right now will always be available. That will always be the way that people can do it. We will add additional features that allow people to send out a barcode to be able to do that in the future. However, if that's something that you don't need, people don't have to do it that way at all. This is what you're seeing here is going to be the primary way for paying for people's parking. And we'll just add things on that might be beneficial to departments as they become available. And then how those pre-coded validations that work. Yeah, you'd set them up to be able to be used just once or be able to be used multiple times or be able to be used forever. So the way you set up those vouchers, which would be barcodes that are sent to people, is customizable. Are validations only accepted at Oak Street Ramp? No, validations are any place that has the new equipment can accept the new validation method. So the other places were in progress as we needed to get all the merchants set up. But now as of this week, merchants are set up so they'll be able to apply validations. So Tracy, on the App Store, you can download the other version. You just need to change, she says, the US version of the app on the App Store. You can download the other version, the European version, and then there's that one screen that says server. If it starts with EU, it's wrong. It just needs to be changed to US. But you can do it from there. There we are. Okay. And then it didn't recognize the login. Huh. Okay, so Tracy had tried that. So if you change the server, maybe save it, close the app down and try the login information again. Just kind of close the app fully and see if that works. Okay. So Andrea, I can't walk through how to set up the pre-coded barcode validations because they're not in our actual production environment just yet. When we do, we'll use the list of the people that are set up here to, if that's something that people want to use, then we can do another similar meeting to this. The intent right now is I'm just going to keep a meeting like this on the calendar once a week. To answer people's questions on validations until we get people comfortable, and we'll probably roll out something like that in one of these meetings, but we'll keep people informed when we do have the barcode validations. If that's something people want to start using and sending out, we'll do something similar to this where we walk them through that on the system. Let's see. Brian, how do we find out which facilities have new equipment installed remotely? So you can just go to the web page. So just the Parking and Transportation Services web page will have the information of the places that are installed. So right now we had, when we'd started listing the information, validations, contracts, and transient parking were in separate columns. Because there were different pieces that we needed to do for each. Now, though, all of those pieces are together. So once a facility has any green in it, it's good and green for validations, contracts, and everything else. So yeah, the timeline for the barcode validation process, again, that'll be January. Okay. Oh, yep. There we go. Okay. Still have any other questions out there? Okay. If there are no other questions, I want to say thanks to everybody for joining, and we'll be checking that validation webpage, because the things that we learn and the things that we know, we'll be updating that information there, so we can get as much information out to people as we can. Okay, sitting there. So Leah, again, the same so exec students, is this the executive MBA program? Possibly? Yeah, okay. Yes, so on groups like that, on card pulled groups like that, we'll likely get the parking cards set up similar to that, or finding a method that's easy on that. So, because that's a specialty group. We have a couple different specialty groups that we'll need to do, that we need to figure those out. And that's one of them, is it's a group where, because I believe you're set up, it's where you have a X number of cards, but only a certain number is in at a time, kind of thing.
No, I think what we have is the students, our students person does this, but I don't know how exactly it works, but
Right.
she sets it up with you somehow so that they
Yep.
have parking available on certain class
days.
days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So she'll still be able to do that with
Yep.
them.
Yep. Yes.
Okay, and then we have groups of students who come in now, obviously not right now during the
Right.
pandemic, but in a real world, we have students that come in like after hours, and we would give them the coupons,
Uh-huh.
and they would say, I'm going to meet with 10 students on Sunday morning at 2, or whatever. So we would give them how many coupons ahead of time that they were going to need for their study group.
Right.
But now I'm guessing that that's going to kind of go to the voucher system.
Right. Yep. Yep. Well, actually, what I would probably recommend is the person that's leading the study group,
Yeah.
you set them up as a clerk. And then as they come in for the study group, then they can just use the app and just scan all the tickets for their study group.
Okay, yeah, that was part of my question too,
Right,
is can
yeah.
we set up the student themselves? Like if we have like one account string that's set up for them to come
Yep.
in and pay for parking for study groups.
Mhm.
So we would probably have to set up like all 40 students, and they could all be set up as clerks.
Yes. So you could do that, or you could set up a student study group as a clerk.
Oh,
And then you could give that login information. And then if they're doing a study group, you could activate that clerk for that day, and that person could log in, do what they needed to do for that study group, validate all those tickets. Then you could disable that role so it wasn't open and active just all of the time, and then just enable it on the days that they were coming in. That's a way you could do it. Or you could keep that role active all the time too, but then anybody you gave that credentials to would also be able to validate anytime that they wanted. So depends on how much control you want to have over it.
yeah, well, it's our exec students, so they come
Right.
in, they're generally working during the day, and then they come in at night.
Right.
I don't think that they're an issue as far as like stealing parking from us. We pay for their parking,
Right. Yeah.
So
If that's the case, you could just leave the clerk profile. You could be MBA exec, as a clerk, and then they could just have it on their phone. 40 of them can have that. They could use that login and validate when they were doing a study group. But just recognize then if you get, if somebody was doing something they shouldn't be doing with it, you wouldn't know exactly who that was. Alternatively, you could set up the 20 or 30 or 40 students all as clerks too. That works as well.
I think we almost might want to do that so we can track who it is that's validating parking. I'll have to talk to that team and see how they want to handle it.
You know, there's a lot of work on the front end setting up clerks, but once they're set up, like then, you know, then it's super easy. Because
Okay.
you could just disable them if you want to disable them if they're gone for a semester or something like that, and re-enable them. You know, you can see who scanned what, when they scanned it, how many they used, and who, you know, to see how much usage you're getting too.
Sure.
Another thing that this avoids is you no longer have these sort of free out there in the wild coupons that, you know, maybe they got used that day, but maybe somebody didn't use them that day and they used them when they came a different time. And you didn't necessarily want to pay for that, but they have the coupon and there was nothing we could ever do to disable.
No. And it happens.
Right. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
There we go. Any other questions? Okay. Well, with that, I'll head on out. Thank you, everybody. And we're down quite a bit from what we were before. So
Thank you so much.
thank you. Yeah. Have a good one.
You too.
Thank you, Ben. Great training presentation.
Thanks.
What, honey? I